Okay. So here's the recap summary of where we're at. The neighbor who lives directly across this field back in here wants to put a 200 by 200 house lot just across the street from our road right here. In fact, there's wood stakes where it's staked out down there. When he went to get the permits to do it, which Scott Ziegler from this Hand It to the Plow surveying company, who's hopefully going to be here in a few minutes, they went to get the permits and then discovered that the county doesn't own the road. We do. It's on our land. Hopefully this is familiar. Everybody knows this. So we own about 7 feet on the other side of the road, which I thought was
that's hilarious.
Is super interesting.
So funny.
Giving all the grief that we have gotten for where our rocks are.
Oh man, that is great. That's fantastic.
We went well with our rocks and our property.
So the question was posed, would we grant an easement to use this driveway? It's not a road, it's a driveway.
Yeah.
For him to be able to have access to his property. Well, that sparked a whole bunch of conversation about, well, holy cow, like, what do we do with this thing? As you noticed coming in this morning, if you came in that way, the county has been out, they've plowed the road, they put dirt down on it to try and give it some tread and whatnot. So the county has been maintaining the road, the physical structure of the road, maintaining needs like snow and ice and things like that, even though it isn't a county road. So the question becomes, what do we want to do with that? Do we want to grant an easement? And I think Scott is bringing up some drawings of the what it actually looks like. Do we want to, and these are just all the options here, grant an easement? Do we want to refuse the easement but keep it as it is? Do we want to turn it over to the county and say, hey, it's your road, now you take care of it? That would have to go to the commissioners because they'd have to accept it. Do we want to eliminate it as a public road where people are driving through and, you know, whatever that may look like? There are sort of reasons and considerations for each one of those that I kind of want us to talk about. But as far as I know, those are basically the four options: that stays it is and we grant the easement, stays as it is, we refuse the easement, surrender it to the county, or eliminate it as a public road. Is there another option that I'm not thinking of?
We could make it a toll road.
Make it a toll.
There is another option.
Meeting adjourned. We just put a booth and one of those real crappy arms out front.
Yeah.
My guess is that neither the highway department nor the commissioners know about
I'm sure they don't.
I don't think so. So back when we were putting at Honeywell, when we were putting the building up, far back, they were talking about accessing roads and stuff like that. And I remember conversations where they couldn't figure out why this road didn't have a name, like, or a number. And they just, I don't know if they contacted the county about it. That part I'm not sure. I just remember there being those conversations, which that would explain a lot.
Yeah.
Well, you've got, what, 90 years of history?
Yeah.
So this is the way it's always been for 90 years. And why it didn't get numbered when the county went to the numbering system is a
Hey,
very
Ron.
interesting thing. Ron.
Well, now, so one of the things that, and I have to leave here at 9 o'clock. I'm leaving here at 9. Maybe that's a better way to say it. Not like, oh, I have to leave. I'm leaving at 9. We're finally having our family Christmas today, gathering with our kids. So I'm here under protest of my wife. But one of the things that immediately came up when they went to the, I don't know what it is. Whatever.
Would have been, they would have gone to the planning commission, building department to get a building permit.
Yeah. They knew it and figured it out immediately. So I don't know exactly what's up with the county. So part of the consideration as we talk about these elements is we want to be a good neighbor. Now, good neighbor doesn't mean that your neighbor gets to drive through your yard to go to work.
Yep.
Right? So
They did down there.
Yeah,
and we had a problem with that.
It might not be.
So that I don't want us to equate good neighbor means we have to let them do whatever they want to.
Yep.
Especially when one of the easy things is you go just around the corner and you can pop out onto an actual road.
Is that still his property though, to deed?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
Right.
They could make a driveway there.
Well, there's another issue. And I've been thinking a lot about this week. It would be interesting to have a numbers count. Tim, do you have any idea how many trucks come in and out of Honeyville Metal every week?
I can find out.
Because semis cannot make the turn down here at the mill.
Right.
So I was thinking about it driving here today that originally they were supposed to go down to 500 and come in that way. Modern GPS brings them here on 400. So trucks for Honeyville Metal absolutely need this access. Do we know what is he wanting?
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Sorry, I'm late.
Not a problem. Stay warm. Keep your sweatshirt on.
It's not bad in here. Dad, you're literally sitting in front of the heater.
Oh, well,
You're the one guy sitting
older
in front
guys,
of
we think about things like
the.
this.
Jonas, I have a question though with regards to what Dad said, is because you run a trucking business, what do you do when the GPS takes you to a place and you can't maneuver, you have to find a different route?
Right.
So, although he mentioned they absolutely need it, but couldn't they reroute to go around the other direction?
Yeah, well, I don't know about the GPS. I mean, if you follow your GPS, you're going to go where it takes you. But if you're a good truck driver, you'll call for directions if you've never been there before. But
Okay.
but nobody does that anymore. They just follow the GPS. They're like, well, if it's not, we'll figure it out. If we can't go any further, we'll.
Okay.
Because they could take either 500 in or they could take 1,000 and then
Yeah.
go straight that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it came to that, like where that was the decision to cut that off, I could talk to our logistics guy, and they would have to, as long as we gave advance notice, I mean, he'd be able to send out to our dealers. We have like guys from other companies coming in and picking up loads or whatever else.
Yeah.
So it's not just like our trucks there.
Yeah. So one of the possibilities, and I just put it under the close the road option, is rather than actually physically closing the road, putting up signs that say no through trucks. And I'll tell you, one of the things that bugs the snot out of me with this, which almost pulls that they need this completely off the shelf for me, is we just replaced all this blacktop, we cemented it, because the trucks came through and broke it all up. And I don't know how many times here during the day you'll have trucks who somehow did make it onto that angle, and they're coming this way, and then they turn and they go right through here because they want to get to that road over there, and they'll drive right through our front parking area. And man, that's why we have those cones out there. Now, since the mill closed down, that's got a lot better. So I'm glad for that. I'll never forget the day when the truck came through and drove right through our cones and smashed them all up. And I'm running out there. I can hear them, and I'm like, I know I put the cones up, and I get there just in time to see them go, and they're like breaking and popping, and I'm yelling, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing?
GPS from LaGrange, Indiana to Honeyville Metal takes you down this.
Right down there,
Yep.
yeah. So that part of what I want us to do is think about what are the options and implications for each one of the options. Granting the easement, not granting the easement, surrendering the road, and fully closing the road. And there's a spectrum with that, all the way to just putting a sign up that says no trucks, and then they do what they do. But Scott, as long as you're here, that he came in and talked with John and I the other day, which was really helpful to sit down and think about that. If you wouldn't mind talking about some of the implications that you had talked about, things that, even possibilities like if the county took over the road entirely, what that does as far as setbacks, and what are the implications for easements and things like that.
Okay, sure. So I'm Scott Ziegler, I handle the plow surveying, is the business I run. I'm a land surveyor by trade. So I was hired by Mel to survey his property. He sold the south portion to his son-in-law Quinn, and that line is just at this intersection to the north of, there's a lone tree down there, just north of that is basically the dividing line. So south went to Quinn, and north, I think, is going to Quinn's son or Mel's grandson. And then Mel was going to build a new house. So that's what precipitated all of this. The best place on what was left of that property to build a house based on soils for septic was in what would be his southwest corner. So down here, starting at this lone tree, basically. And there should be some wood stakes out there that would show that. Come about 250 feet north and then go east to get 1 acre. So as far as soil tests for septic system, that seemed to be the best there. And our presumption was, since the county had been maintaining that road, at least it appeared to, and talking to people, that the county had put signs up and done paving, and well, obviously they put sand and salt down, yesterday or day before, whatever. That at some point in time there was an agreement, because obviously you knew this was a school before, that there was some arrangement between the school and the county years ago to establish that as a road, and on that point, there very well may still be some document that exists out there where there was an agreement. That we just haven't found that, and there's no easy way to search for that. We've tried to reach out to Rex Springer, the former county surveyor, to see if he has any knowledge of that. He's probably one of the longest serving people in the county that I would be aware of an agreement possibly like that. The highway had no knowledge of any sort of an agreement or a document that gave them the right to maintain that road. So in the midst of all this, there always could be some sort of a document or agreement out there that where the school at one point gave the county permission to, or the ability to maintain that road. So I guess just to continue on the thread just a little bit, by Mel cutting off what he's going to end up with 1 acre left, we got to go through a minor plat process with the county. And in that process, then anytime you cut out less than 10 acres, you got to go through that process there. The county said, hey, wait a minute, you have to have access to a public road. And we don't have documentation that this road is public road right away. So that's what precipitated everything. So I want to apologize, first of all, for any inconvenience or headache or heartache that this may be causing on Mel's behalf. Had we known this for sure ahead of time, we would have stopped that whole process and started this dialogue first before we got into that process. So the situation Mel's in now, and we just found out about this last Thursday, and I talked to Mel Monday right after you and I spoke. went over and talked to him, so he was, well, geez, I thought that was a road as far as I knew, and but we represent our clients on situations like this, so that's why I'm here and not Mel, is we usually help them through the process here. So Mel's situation is, he's going to build there, he's got to get access to a public road one way or another, and that would either be an easement south across what he sold to Quinn, which would mean you'd have a driveway coming out right parallel with the road, which doesn't necessarily seem to make a lot of sense, or he could go north somehow and get out onto 400, which would obviously be a long lane, or work out some sort of arrangement to come over on the current road here. So that's kind of the three options he has if he's going to proceed with a house, in that location there. And I did talk to him Monday, and it sounded like later this summer. I think the last his wife said was maybe August time frame was when they thought the builder would be starting. So that's plus or minus. So that said, that's kind of where we're at here. As far as Mel's options would be, he just needs to have access to a public road. So that could be an easement from his property, his acre, along this paved area, whatever you call that, south to 900, I guess. It wouldn't have to even come in front of the church. That would meet the technical requirements of what the county would have. I think the county's preference would be the whole thing just be made a road officially. But the minimum Mel would need would be, he's got to get from that tract of land, because that tract doesn't touch 900 down there. He's got to somehow get to a public road there. So if you're involved, again, the minimum would be, and he has to be a 50-foot wide easement according to the county. It would have to give him, would have to touch his property by at least 50 feet. So it would have to come at least 50 feet south of his south corner, be 50 feet wide, and at least go south to the road. And then the only other caveat in that, he's going to need power at some point. So I think there is a power pole down there that probably would be in that minimum area there. So with regard to an easement, the county treats an easement like a road, so that easement would become a front setback line. So in your case, let's say if this were a road all the way through here, you'd have a road on three sides. So you'd have from a setback standpoint, from a building setback standpoint, you'd have three fronts to your property, and you'd have to meet the front setbacks on all of those, since there would be a public road. So that setback for, you're in ag zoning here, that setback for ag zoning is 80 feet. Now they may consider this a commercial use, and in which case that moves to 120 feet from the center of the road. But at minimum it would be an 80-foot setback. So you would have that setback now off of 900 and off of 500. If this were to become a road, that would be the same thing. It would be a setback line then of 80 feet from the center of that road. If it's an easement, typically what they do in that case, if it's an easement off of a road, they'll take that 80 feet less whatever that right of way is. So in that case, it'd be 55 feet, 80 feet less 55, or less, 80 feet less 25 feet. And then so you have a 55-foot setback off of that easement, which would be a front setback. So at a minimum, if it's an easement, there'd be a building setback line that would be 55 feet off of the center line of that easement. You couldn't build within that. Now that, depending on what you give him, that may all fall within whatever the setback line of 900 is. But you're probably not going to build much in that very corner triangle down there anyways. But you would have that. At a minimum, there would be a setback that would be imposed on an easement, and the county would treat that similar to that being a front setback or a road setback line on your property.
What about putting a sign? We're thinking about putting a sign on that corner. Would that cause an issue with
The setback?
the setback? Would that cause a problem?
Now they're going to view. Oh, you're talking like a sign for the church?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
thinking about putting up a permanent sign, probably foundation underneath it.
So any signage has to meet the county standards for signs, which is typically, it has to be the height of the sign back from the right of way. So if you have a 10-foot tall sign, that sign needs to set 10 foot back from the right of way. So if this was made a road, and that would be whatever that road width is, typically it's 40 feet, they like 50, if you're just developing a new road. But if that was a 40-foot road right of way, then you'd have to be 10 feet, again, 10-foot tall sign, you have to be 10 feet west of that west line of the right of way and 10 feet back off.
Really, the setback doesn't play into that.
No, that's just for buildings. That would not affect the sign. It would just be permanent improvements, buildings of any.
But what that would affect would be if we gave it to the county, turn it over to the county, that would affect all the parking on that side.
It could, yes, definitely, because, and I didn't measure it exactly, but your property line is basically the line of the power poles, give or take a foot or so in through there. I've put 2 stakes down here at Mel's Acre, and down here at Joe that's down here, there's a stake down there by his fence. In fact, this fence is over on the just a little bit. If you sight down through there, you can basically see the power pole, roughly the power poles would be on that eastern side of your property. So if you assume a 40-foot right of way, I think that gets you to roughly the back of the paint for the parking spaces, but more than likely, I would say where our cars are parked, probably the tail of those cars are probably, there would be in that 40-foot strip there. So that, again, could be a potential issue there of parking. You would potentially be parking on the county road right away at that point in time. Additionally, the county usually only likes a 30-foot wide driveway coming onto their road. So you have, I think you have about 90 feet or something in here all paved.
Yeah.
So they probably wouldn't do anything about something existing, but if you ever came in for any sort of a permit or a site plan or whatever, they'd probably make you bring the entire site up to compliance, including, let's say, if you had a sign that was set and it didn't meet that setback, they'd probably make you move the sign. If you had a well and a septic that wasn't within the proper separations, you'd probably have to do that. If there was parking on the public right of way, if you had, paved surface like this, well, even like, for instance, down in Honeyville Metal, if they ever come in for the next building permit, they've got pavement, their driveway's a whole lot wider than 30-foot minimum, so that'll probably have to be addressed at some point in time. They make all those things be cleaned up. Topeka Livestock Auction, if you've ever been up by there recently, okay, it used to be pavement for, what, 500 feet there? Nope, they made them come in here and put them barricades and went down to specific points there. Been there for a long time, 40 years, 50 years, but no, they came in, put a new building up, got to meet these standards, and they made them go in and close down that. So that's kind of been their methodology there and all that. So there's things that would potentially have to change if that was made a road or an easement, possibly. Now that said, if you voluntarily give up something, you could put in there that, hey, we'll give you this right of way or easement, but we want to retain these things. We want to retain our ability to extend our building out maybe another 10 feet from where it is right now, let's say, or we want to be able to have the pavement like it is, we want to be able to have parking like it is, a whole number of things like that. We want to be able to put a sign right up against the right of way instead of having to set 10 feet back. I think you could, because you're giving something up that's not theirs or giving something to them, then I think you could reasonably ask for all these things. Whether they accept that or not would be a different story then. But I would certainly want to look through what all those potential ramifications could be. But definitely there's building setbacks, there's parking and driveway would be the 3 major things that I would see right now that if that was made a road and their rules apply and nothing's grandfathered in, that could cause some grief and headache.
Well, from what I've heard, I think giving it to the county is not really a good option. Giving it to the county. It just sounds like in the future it could be a lot of headaches dealing with having to deal with the county on this issue. And realistically, if we even bring it up to the county, make it more part of, in their limelight that, hey, you don't actually own this road. There goes all of our free maintenance and snow plowing and stuff. And but on the other hand, if the county suddenly says, okay, well, we realize that's yours, we no longer maintain it, how much maintenance does that road really take if we don't have, huge trucks coming through? We're looking at plowing and
The cost of asphalt is significant.
right.
So that's an issue. I was also thinking in this whole process, because I believe Honeybill's fiber optics come
They
through our
do, but
property.
that's going to be the same, that's going to fall into the same as the power lines. So you have to leave,
Yeah, but they came on this side.
Yeah.
it's on,
It's
Yeah.
on the west side.
is it really?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I assumed it was on the same side as the
No.
power lines.
No.
No,
Gotcha.
Yeah, there's
there's some issues here.
Yeah, they didn't follow. They didn't do due diligence on that. They shouldn't even come across here because there's no right of way. Is there? I mean, I guess on
Well,
the property
not if
edge
that's
there would
private
be.
property.
Yeah.
Well,
But
you have to have, there's going to be right away to the power lines. So like the utility companies would have a right away because the power lines goes in there. So they have to be able to
Yeah, but
service
not
it.
on this side of the road.
Right, right.
But here again, this building was built, Scott, in 1930. So, on one hand, if we expand this building, its footprint, we have opened a monumental can of worms with the state. We've already been through that.
Yeah.
So, that's just, in some respects, a non-option with expanding this building. What the state would make us do.
Yeah. But if you well, let's say you built something new, and you, now this is a road, well then all of a sudden you got to stay 80 feet back from the center of that road, which you wouldn't have had to have had before. So you want to preserve something like that as well, that if you were to build down there and over toward the east side, then you wouldn't have to meet that setback line as well without having to get a variance. So that's something I'd certainly.
So Mel doesn't own anything further south than that lot then?
He just recently sold that to Quinn.
So the option of selling another spot to make a driveway out to, or an easement out to the public road.
I'm sure we can do that. I mean, it's his son-in-law, so that's not a big deal. I'm sure what he was thinking when I was building there. Well, here's the road. I'll just put my house in and put a driveway over to.
Is the ground any different? Like shifting it more towards, I guess if Quinn owns that now, it would be up to Quinn to sell that section.
I'm sure if that was what it came down to, that was the only option. He could probably just take that acre and slide it over and actually make that acre adjoin
Well,
the
yeah,
900 there. So that's.
I was thinking like soil types. That
Oh, I doubt it would make much difference on that. Or he could just get an easement off of. When the only issue, and we haven't got that cleared with the county highway, that typically they like to see about 150 feet of separation between driveways. So, if we had a driveway coming into this intersection, which technically, if it's not a road, that would be considered a driveway, so we would want it to be 150 feet of separation between that driveway and where the road intersection would be. That would be, Mel would just have to have a little bit longer driveway, or shove his piece down into that corner. So, we've not.
Sorry, the intention of that lot is to go to residence, right?
Yeah, Mel.
Single family residence.
That's where Mel would retire to. Mel's grandson would be buying. If it hasn't already done that, then yeah. So the idea was Quinn wanted 25 acres, so that's where the line got where it was because Quinn wanted 25 acres. So we just came from his line and got 25 acres there. There was nothing magical about where we drew that line other than he was buying 25 acres. So, and I'm sure we could look at other options if it isn't an option to come over and use this.
So the intent is for Mel to move on that 1 acre plot?
Yes.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
A
Mel's
dotty house,
grandson.
probably.
A dolly house,
Yeah, small house there. I would imagine, one slab or something like that, retire.
Yeah.
But obviously it's going to be a house there for somebody for
Yeah.
the near future.
And Mel is not on this group.
No.
Ben and I are.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about the implications of horses versus animals.
Again, that's not to say it doesn't sell to an Amish at some point in time.
Yeah.
Right.
That's the other thing. Like, so in thinking about this, if we were to grant easements, and he sells that one acre lot, or he moves to that 1 acre lot, and then there is, I don't know the distance between the end of that lot and the house in the corner here. If he were to sell any more of plots, like, there's probably room for at least another couple acre lots there.
3 or 4 had to have 150 minimum, so yeah, I don't remember if it brought that
At least
drawing.
1 or 2, so there is a potential, if we turn it over to the county, that there could go possibly at least 2 more houses, if not just one.
Oh, absolutely.
And 1 more house on that road.
Well,
So then there'd be
and one of my
multiple
thoughts
houses.
is even if, I'm pretty strongly against turning it over to the county. You probably gathered that. But if we grant an easement, which it seems like that isn't a terrible thing to do, by doing that, do we open the door to the next two people who go, well, what about us? We want to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I can make some money because I can sell these lots, and now they're frontage lots, and we'll get that. And because we've done it once, then there's sort of this like county pressure, like you have to do it, and then the dominoes get fallen, and all of a sudden now we don't have a choice, and the county says, no, this essentially is a public right of way. We're taking it, which is.
You could always ask for Mel or his grandson to put a deed restriction on that would allow no houses on that strip of land. In Elkhart County, we call it a non-access easement. So basically, you agreed as a landowner that you think about it. A lot of times on a state highway where you've got 500 feet of road frontage, but they only want your driveway here, so you give them what's called a non-access easement on the remainder of the property. So it's basically a little spike strip, if you will, that you're agreeing to not use any of that portion for a driveway or road access. So you could put something in place there, some sort of an agreement with Mel's grandson. And I'm not sure if it's actually transferred to Mel yet or not, but Mel is going to transfer all that to his grandson, and then his grandson transfer the lot back to him. So you could ask for something like that along there. But it would make sense. I mean, there's a lot of pressure in this immediate area for home sites. Yeah. So you got a bunch of road frontage there. So it would seem logical at some point in time that property could get divided up into lots.
Yeah.
Or for whomever.
One of the biggest concerns, if houses were to go in there, is we have a lot of kids here, a lot of like people in and out, is the increased traffic on that road, and kids playing. I know like we already have issues with cars using the front of this, like Matt had mentioned earlier. Of just using the front of our church as a drive-through, as a road, and I've seen it when we've had youth out here where kids are running out and vehicles just flew right by.
Yeah.
And it's dangerous. That's my concern, is just having more houses that increases more traffic on that road.
And the other, I don't know if the county is going to pursue anything. My understanding, and this is a conversation between the county and one of my staff, was that the county's attorney, and I'm not sure if it was the county attorney or one of the attorneys working for the county, but I kind of took it was maybe the commissioner's attorney, was that his opinion was either, and again you're getting this third hand, either the church give up an easement or the county would pursue taking an easement, but I don't know how aggressively they would be on taking an easement.
That's exactly my thought.
So I'm not an attorney. I've sat through some professional development classes over the years, and we run into situations on an old highway where there's no official documented road take or right of way for that, and those issues have come to court, and people have challenged things over the years, and so there's two ways you can have regulations, really, if you will. One is it's a law that's passed by a legislature, and it's either Indiana code or Indiana administrative code. You would get laws. The other way would be you go through the court system, and there would be what's called common law, and that would be how the courts have interpreted a situation, and that then acts as law. It's called common law. And so on the common law side, it's if an entity, a governmental entity, has been maintaining a road for years, I don't know if there's a set time frame, that they can, with action through the court, could take ownership from edge of pavement to edge of pavement. So they could treat that edge of pavement to edge of pavement as though they own it, which would basically be a right of way, or people could move up and down there, whatever. Yep. Now, that said, there's still the land. So if they would do that, that may be, and they could do that, I believe, without any compensation whatsoever. They could prove we've been maintaining it. They could just come in and say, we're taking this as ownership of this paved surface. But that doesn't give them the right for anything beyond that edge of pavement, right? So there's a couple of issues there. One, you would have that land from the edge of pavement to your actual east property line that they couldn't assert that authority over in those common law cases like that. So that would still give you rights of that land then, that you would have full ownership between the edge of pavement and that. So as far as how it was, if the county came in and just took it by pavement, by common law, that would automatically give them the authority to allow somebody to build on that over there, because they still have to get from that edge of pavement to that property line, right? So that would be an issue potentially where you still have an ace in your pocket really on that. And then the same way coming from that edge of pavement over this way, you could in essence, I'm not saying put a fence up there, but you could in essence maintain that as ownership and say, here's our ownership line down that edge of pavement, and not allow people to come across over onto your land.
Andrea, do you have any idea where our abstract is when we purchased this
No, we don't
property?
I can
No.
get you a copy of your deed.
Well,
I mean, the file somewhere?
That's
I mean,
one-
that was before me, so.
yeah.
That's got 15 minutes, just so you guys
Yeah.
are aware of the time.
Because I'm wondering if there is something in that. Because there would have had, if there was an agreement with the county, that would show up somewhere in the abstract, would it not?
If you had an abstract, in theory, it should show up in the abstract. My guess is you purchased this recently enough, they're probably not doing abstracts.
We bought it in 2001.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, Westview School Corporation didn't even know the legal name of this building and the property.
Yeah, so the only records I have would be the deed that you have
Okay.
from Westview School Corporation to the church here. That deed doesn't mention anything about an easement right away, but again, that's not to say somebody didn't do due diligence when they were preparing the deed and search the records, so there could be something back there. That's not to say there's nothing in the records, or again, it could be some agreement in a commissioner's meeting going back eons ago, where before it was even Westview School Corporation, that entity, that township, whatever the school was at that point in time, had an agreement with the commissioners, and it's the land
Metropolitan
is.
School District of Topeka.
Yeah, so that could be an agreement in the commissioner record books that would show up there, and who knows?
Who knows?
So Scott, if they did from pavement end to pavement, could they enforce anything saying we can't park right up against it? Would that put in effect the
Possibly.
right of way?
I think it would be hard to do until you came in for a site plan that would improve the property. I would think it would be, I can't imagine an elected board of commissioners coming in and doing something like that, saying we're taking this from you and we're making you move all this parking that's been here for eons. But they could have the right to do that if it was a public road. They could say, hey, this violates our development ordinances or whatever. But then again, if they did that for you, they'd have to do it for how many other places around the county that were situations like that. So I can't imagine them doing that unless you came in, like I said, and said, hey, we want to put a structure in, we got to have the site plan. And at that point, they'll say, okay, the whole property has to come into compliance. If you want us to give you this permit or permission to use the property this way, then they could at that point. And they've done that, like so, Big Livestock and others. They force those things.
So maybe the better option, if anything, would be we'll give you this road, but there's going to be a clause here where the setbacks don't apply.
Yeah, if I were your, if you hired me to help you through a process, and when I look at a situation like this, even though I'm working for Mel, I want to look out for your interests too. I don't want to do something on Mel's behalf that's going to cause you grief or heartache or anything like that too. So I usually try to look out for both sides as though each of them were my client, and I want to protect both people there. So I would certainly suggest that if you move forward, and I'm willing to help you in whatever process moving forward, and I'll do it free gratis too, to help you out. That you, if you do give something up voluntarily, that you retain whatever, or a whole list of rights potentially.
It seems like with that, and I hadn't heard the idea of the deed restriction before. Like there's a possibility that we could grant the easement, be good neighbors, but also build in a restriction that goes, this property can't be cut up and used for that in the future. And we've made our neighbors happy we've made our county happy, who has, like, the public still gets to use it as a road, and maybe things can just continue as they are with the county.
That would be the ideal situation. My concern is, with the county aware of this, what is going to be their involvement in maintenance of this road?
Well, and so part of my thought with that, because I've thought about that a little bit, is you have what if they don't take care of it, so we surrender it, or we could grant the easement, and then if they go, hey, you know what, we don't own this, we're not going to take care of it, well, then that's sort of a secondary thing where we could go like, okay, so we're going to call Scott and have him set up, a whole bunch of like owner rights for us to relinquish this. But I don't, my personal feeling is there's a possibility that they might do that, but let's not act on that until they don't do it.
Right.
Yeah.
I think with the granting of the easement, there's a couple things that we need to do. Is definitely put that deed restriction. You have access to this only. Also, I think we need to take a line that's 30 feet from where that easement ends and say, okay, new owner, if any maintenance needs to happen on this section of it, you need to split the cost with us on this maintenance, because whenever you connect asphalt to concrete, there's always going to be some sort of maintenance. If he puts in a concrete driveway, what's up to that asphalt, there's going to be maintenance there. And because that's now a shared area, he needs to split that cost with us.
Another thought I have
And we can
is,
decide down the road. We don't have to decide this morning, but down the road, what do we want to do with this? I don't think giving it to the county is a good idea.
on my property in LaGrange, I had a 50-foot easement and a 30-foot easement for someone. Could we make part of that 50-foot easement go onto his property, to where he gives 20 feet and we give 30 feet, to where we don't give up any easement on our, basically that'd probably come to the edge of the pavement, where he'd have to share some of that easement footage.
Yeah, we've done that in the past. I'm guessing the county would want to see the easement come to the west edge of the pavement.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's and actually, if you get right down to it, a better scenario might even be to only grant him a 30-foot easement, because technically there's a code, there's a section buried in code where if you have more than one house, you have to have a 50-foot wide easement. But one house can exist on a 30-foot easement. Yeah. So that's one way to guarantee there's no more than one person using that easement. It's only 30 feet. So then there's no way for a second person. Now that's, I guess, not to say that he couldn't grant a piece on his side then to be able to access that.
Sure.
So in that case, you might want the easement to not touch your east line. That way you have control of that easement, and somebody couldn't just widen it and then continue on from there then. But again, you could put that in the agreement on the easement, is this is for one single family residence only. Yeah. So I think it could be covered no matter what.
Yep.
So that's, I think it could easily be cleaned up.
Matt, you have 6 minutes, and I have a major question that is concerning.
Yeah.
What, if any, conversations are we going to have with the council, with the county, and with whom on the county?
Or do we need to?
Absolutely. Absolutely, because I'm in a dilemma. I am the county. I've been on the county council for about 30 years. So I'm in an awkward position, and this would not come before the council. However, as a council, I'm appropriating the commissioner's budget and the highway department's budget and the building department's budget. So there's got to be some conversation with the commissioners, in my estimation.
Yeah, so my thought would be conversation with a commissioner, the planning director, which would be Robbie, and then the highway engineer would be
And the engineer.
at minimum. Theron would be the minimum three I would want to have conversations, with as far as before we proceeded. That should address any highway concerns, access, whatever, and then building concerns, setback lines, whatever there, and obviously commissioners, intent there. So at a minimum, I would say dialogue would be there, and I think or Mel's not expecting a decision. It's just great you guys need to meet, today, but we understand this is going to take time to process through there, and even if it is something where you agree to an easement, just for Mel to get done what he needs to immediately with understanding restrictions, whatever, and then deal with the road issue completely at a later date, with the county sorting through that.
What I'm thinking of, Commissioner Peter Cook. Peter, we served on the council together for years.
He's now on the plan commission. So he would
He's
be
on the
best
plan
one to get it
commission,
right.
had been on the plan commission as the council rep. So he understands these things, say, better than Kevin Myers or Terry Martin, the other two commissioners. But yeah, I just think we must bring Robbie and Theron and Peter into this conversation.
And if you'd like, I could try to coordinate something with them, and whether it be just you, Matt, or whomever could meet it. I might have to be during the day sometime for them, but I can try to get something set up in the near future to kind of hammer through some concerns on both sides.
Yeah, because I'm sitting here smiling because following the commissioners meeting, I will be sitting down with the county attorney going through each one of the legal claims that we're going to have to approve for payment on the 13th.
So
I'm in a unique position here.
here, and obviously we have some people who aren't here, which is why we're recording this, and we'll give them a chance to listen and weigh in. With a summer/August build time, it gives us a little bit of time for us to talk about it, and it feels like, just listening here, the best possible case scenario is that we grant this easement, and then we talk to the county and go, look how neighborly we are being with this road that we're sharing with the world. Don't come and take it. Don't impose restrictions upon us. But can we, part of the thing, Dad, with what you were saying is if you can come in this week and help us track down that abstract, let's actually find it, because if it exists, maybe there's already an agreement. So
that's what I want to know.
Why would we like run in like, here's all our cards, whoosh, especially when it feels like sometimes the other side isn't playing.
Well, yeah.
They're the casino,
There's definitely wisdom in trying to do, and I could call Lakeland Title and have them try to do some sort of a search to see if they can find any recorded documents. Again, that's not to say there aren't other official documents that exist somewhere, but somebody has to sit through the commissioner's book and flip meeting by meeting and go through, since probably 1930 and try to see if there was something in there for that.
We could maybe have Google help pay for the road upkeep, since they're sending people here on Google Maps.
Right.
Yeah, that's right. There we go.
Charge them for road maintenance.
But if there is something existing, or it is here's my argument, it is in the county's best interest to keep maintaining and upkeeping this road because we're letting the public use it.
Yeah.
Now, if one of the options is not letting the public use it, why say we come out here with a jackhammer and we break that thing up in a day, and we're like, oh, I'm sorry.
In the middle of the road.
Right at the end of here. Oh, it disappeared. Who knew?
I was thinking
That road is gone. Yep.
It's told me, like that.
I like toll booth. I'm in on that. But I don't think we want to be there again, and it's what we started with at the beginning. We don't want to be like grabby or manipulative. We want to be good neighbors, whether it's with our neighbor here or with the community. We don't want to do that in a way that undermines the stability here, whether it's the stinking county trucks coming in and breaking up our blacktop over there, which Andrea just saw him there again, like within the last 2 weeks.
This week.
It was this week.
This week, yeah.
Just sitting there.
And that's what broke it up the first time. And we had
Sitting on
to
the property.
replace all of that.
Well,
But if
and
we
the
can
other-
tell them, look how good we're doing.
The other thing is, we had Jeff Brill, when he was the highway superintendent, who's now on the county council too.
Yeah, I knew that.
But there was a problem with the turn because the semis were coming out in the yard, and the county came in and fixed that. And that's why out here, that turn goes out more into the yard. So, yeah. I just, for me, and you have to leave.
Yeah.
Enjoy your Christmas.
So
I just need to know what to say and not say.
let's not say anything right now. We need to. I need to get this to the rest of the people on
Okay.
ministry council. They need to listen to it. We need to, as a ministry council, we need to come up with an official, and we're not going to do it this morning because they're not here. An official. Here is our best case scenario. This is our vote. We'll get a hold of Scott and go forward, pursue from there. And at that point, then we will pursue all of those official things. But right now, like, nothing changes between today and tomorrow.
Yeah,
So,
and we can come up
let's think
with
about it.
something by the next ministry council. We can
I'm
have it on
in
the
this weekend. My guess is any official documents we have on the property should be in the filing cabinet or in the closet cabinets.
Not in the closet cabinets.
Okay.
I'm
So,
guessing that they should
Scott,
be
I
cleared up.
appreciate you coming in.
Yeah,
Thank you.
really appreciate you being here.
And I can send you the copy of the deed that we have. It's obviously in the county, but plus you can get it, they don't have it. So I can send you that, and I will go ahead and talk to Lakeland Title and see if they can do a search on our dime and see if they can find anything of record that would mention an easement or anything with regard to that.
Wonderful.
Over there.
Did you have any drawings of the proposed, what they have over there?
I do have this. I don't have a layout of what he's planning on the property, but what I submitted to the county as far as the one lot subdivision, I'll get you a copy of that.
Perfect,
Survey on the
perfect.
property.
Yeah, that'll go good in our notes.
Yeah, thank you.
I seriously appreciate you being here. It is
Oh, absolutely.
it is really helpful for us to have somebody with a ton of knowledge and experience be able to go, hey, you should think about this. You should think about this.
I will say one other thing too, and a number of things I've had to the Plan Commission, they seem to be looking a lot more at safety when they prepare a plan. So for instance, somebody coming in to a property, Amish homestead,